I'm talking as a citizen. What can I do if I see something that's wary and something just doesn't look right? What can we do to help? Because we got, 350 million people, say 40 million people living in America, human traffickers. It's not a big number. Say it's in the thousands, but we got a lot of other adults that are out there looking all this other stuff. What signs can we look for and what can we do in that moment, to maybe potentially help one girl that is going through the mess that she's going with a trafficker?
So the answer to that question actually goes right back to the story you just told. The People say, well, what should we look for? Well, people will tell you that you look for a girl with a crown tattoo on her neck. Well, that's pretty old. That's about 20 years ago that traffickers were doing
What's the
that.
crown? What's the crown tattoo
They
on the neck?
they they put a crown. They mark their victims. They used to mark them like on their neck or on their face until they figured out that it's pretty easy for law enforcement to figure out. So they stopped doing that. They still do mark them, but usually in a place that you can't see. And But when you see something that just doesn't make sense, right? And especially when it involves fear, we all know what fear looks like. I mean, we can see it in other people. It's a survival instinct that allowed mankind to proliferate. Say, hey, I'm afraid because there's a lion over there. So we all know what it looks like. And so when you see that, you did exactly the right thing, which is you want to tell the next level of authority that you can, right? So in this case, it was the crew at the airline. If it's not the crew at the airline, it's going to be the airport security. It's going to be a law enforcement officer. It's going to be calling your county sheriff. All of those things. But then you get this problem with too much data, because that law enforcement officer who's a human trafficking detective, well, that's only one of their jobs. They're also working traffic 2 days a week, and they're also doing something else because law enforcement is undermanned as much as anybody in the government. So that's where we come in that we provide technology software so it connects those cases across the country, so that those law enforcement officers can log into our system and say, all right, has any of the information that this girl gave me or this guy gave me, has anybody else in law enforcement seen this before? And so they'll search it and, oh, yep, sure enough, there's a detective in Nebraska. All right, let me call that detective in Nebraska and see what's going on, right? And so getting people to report things. I mean, even if you don't know it's a human trafficking victim. It could be something completely different. It could be, the girl's parents had died in a car crash, and this is an uncle she doesn't know very well who was the last of kin who now is taking her on. I mean, you have no idea, but the point was that something wasn't right, and so you told somebody. And that is exactly what the public needs to do, and err on the side of caution. Right? You just err on the side of caution. Like, this could be a human trafficking problem, it could be a kidnapping problem. There was something going on, so we need to tell somebody.
You know, again, I'm not in your world, but if I'm in your world, I think speed is critical, right? Call to action is critical. And, I understand research data, all of that, but that's to hunt down the trafficker, right?
Mhm.
But when you're in an opportunistic moment, you know, um, there has to be, because once they're gone, they're gone. Your opportunity is gone. How much does speed play a role in catching traffickers when you see an opportunity to execute immediately? Meanwhile, the law enforcement agencies you're dealing with, maybe that's not at their top of their priority. So what happens when you give intel? Do they execute immediately, or it's like, oh, we can't do it today, we're so busy, we'll do it tomorrow? How does the level of speed to call to action? I'm gathered the information, I got it. How fast does execution happen? Executing the data that I got to go catch this guy. What have you noticed yourself?
Not near fast enough.
Yeah,
Law
that's what I thought.
enforcement always wants to execute on it immediately, but great example is at the Super Bowl. We had over 700 intelligence packages go out during the Super Bowl operation. If you took every single law enforcement officer in the Tampa area and solely dedicated them to the human trafficking problem, they wouldn't have been able to get to the bottom of it. And that's a very harsh reality of how big this problem is. And it's gotten this big because we never took combating it seriously. So now we're at the Super Bowl. My analysts, they know many human traffickers who showed up at the Super Bowl and then left the Super Bowl with their girls. Well, quite frankly, that sucks. But we have all that data, and now we know where they're going because they're advertising. So we know where they're going to end up. The computers will let us know when they settle, and then we can call law enforcement in that area and say, hey, these guys were just in the Super Bowl. And the reality is sometimes law enforcement says, hey, we actually don't have anybody who deals with human trafficking. We don't want anything to do with that. And in which case they're like, all right.
Why do they say that though?
Because they're not funded for it. Right? Go to your local, I'm sure you know some folks in law enforcement. Go to your police chief and say, hey, show me the budgets for your narcotics unit, for your gangs unit, for your property crime unit, and for your human trafficking unit. And what you'll find is that their gangs unit is fully funded, narcotics unit is fully funded, property crime, that touches commercial real estate, which touches their donors, the mayor's donors. So guarantee you that's funded. And many times they'll tell you, oh, we actually don't have a human trafficking unit. We have a detective who does something else who, if a human trafficking case comes along, they go ahead and they deal with it.
So you obviously the idea of defunding the police just even hurts us even more because you need funding to be able to execute on some of these things. So question for you on how many total traffickers are there? Not victims, but how many total traffickers, if you can estimate, are there in America today?
I would estimate it around the, it'd be hard, 25 to 50,000 mark.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And the way we get that is, again, we're talking illicit underground commodities, right? Illicit underground networks, very, very difficult to get good data on that. But the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children estimates that about 100,000 children a year, enter the human trafficking market.
In America.
And these are American citizens. This is not Lethal Weapon and there's, Chinese coming in over shipping containers or the movie Taken, right? These are our sons and daughters that are being targeted primarily on internet platforms, social media, gaming consoles by human traffickers and groomed, which is what they call it, into their business enterprise.
I've not asked you this before, but I'm asking you right now, and hopefully you will do this as a valuetainer. Please share this video. Text it to people, hit the thumbs up button, share it whatever way you can for other people to see it, for the algorithms to be on our favor, because this is not a message about how you make millions, how you make billions, how you become successful. It's not entertainment. This is purely something that's about education and awareness. So I'm asking you, share it with any parent that you know and say, just watch this video. Get a paper and pen out. You're going to want to pay attention to this one here. So if you like this little short clip from an interview I did, click over here to watch the entire interview. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.